Hey everyone. So, what I'm wanting to talk about here today is more so the planets of Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter that started top of January 2020, right? But which brought in the unexpected of COVID, right? And what that has done for all of us. But there's more than just COVID going on. Now, that took us by surprise. That's more a Uranian factor, right? The oh my God factor. And of course, it's done many things to many of us, right? And we're trying to learn what the new norms are going to be. It hasn't come easy. A lot of people have all this pent up energy and frustrations and whatnot. We're going to be talking about that as well. And we don't know exactly how long this is going to linger. But the thing is, what's behind it? It's not just the virus itself. And as an astrologer, we can see that. We have a different understanding, a different take on it. Out in the world, they're just looking at that physical aspect of it, the virus, right? And the lockdown. Um, but we're understanding more where it's coming from, what's operating behind it, and maybe why, at least partially, why is this happening? So let's start talking a little bit about the two major players here, Saturn and Pluto. Saturn's all about structure. It's government. It's who we are on the inside. It's our foundation. It's the nation's foundation. It's a global foundation. The structures and the powers to be, which is ruled by Pluto, right? They're coming together here. So, yes, we're seeing how things are changing within the government, politically, power plays, but also in our personal, private lives, in your life, as well as all of our lives, mine too, is how Saturn and Pluto is trying to restructure the foundation of our life. What is important to us? What's important to you? And the power of Pluto will come in to try to just transform this. Now, sometimes these transformations don't come easy because why? Pluto is all about death and rebirth, right? So we could see that there's certain parts of our life, the foundation that we've known to have been, might slowly be dying out, right? We're not talking the physical death. That's the COVID part. Yes, unfortunately, some people have died, and my heart goes out to their families and so forth. But it's more the spiritual death and dying of what used to be the old structures, the old foundation. And there's times in history that those things need to change, or we'll never get off the pot. Just more of the same old, same old, same old. But before new can be born, we have to go through a phase and a period of contractions before birth, right? And that's not always easy, that laboring part. Um, and we can see in our society and in the world, it's like, oh, where is it heading? Where is it going? Where is it going to end up? This and that is shutting down. Well, yes, in the external world, we see that, with um, not being able to go out and eat. The restaurants are closing. People can't go out and socialize, have a drink. That has been shut down. Oh, my goodness, all the people that want to go and work out, right, to be on top of their health. Oh, the gyms have closed. Everything's closed. We know that now. It's old news. We're already heading into September. Um, but it's more like for a time, this is actually easier for the introverts. Why? Because they're already internalizing their world, have been doing this for ages. So it's not that big of a change for them. They're not that extrovert with a need of having to go out and constantly socialize. So I think it's more difficult for those of you extroverts out there because it gives all this pent up energy, and if you don't know how to channel, get that out, well, then there is a problem, right? We also want to talk about the anxiety factor of it, the unknown and not knowing where things are heading, where it's ultimately going to end. It's also about those of you who have certain anxieties and fears physically. I would say go listen to one of my favorites, Bruce Lipton. Think about Lipton tea, right? Bruce Lipton. He talks about speaking to the cells, and it is so true. And there's no other time than this where this can absolutely be applied to for the highest good and benefit, because we think we meet ourselves in the mirror and looking back at us, ourselves every morning, but not true. Like he says, there's 75 billion little cells looking back at you, all of them under your command. Your cells, your body, only do what you ask of them. So if you have fear for um, disease, well, what are your little cells going to do? They're all going to flip out and go, oh, right? And when we have fear, we lose our immune system. It kind of collapses. We have to have strength, hope, trust, the knowingness of I am good, I am healthy. So affirmations come into that too. But this is so important because what is disease? It's being dis at ease. So we're diseased. We're not feeling good. We're worried. We're freaking out. We're creating disease by being dis at ease. So the healthiest way to go, mind over matter, knowing that you are good, you are strong, you are healthy, you are one with self, higher self, knowing that you're just going through a birthing period. Everything is cleansing. It's not just the virus. See, the virus is on top of what's going. Even without the virus, we would still be seeing the shit show with Saturn and Pluto when it comes to the structure of the world, our political society, international societies, big money. Pluto rules big money, all right? Saturn is coming down, shutting down the stores, the malls, mom and pops, enterprises, and so forth. Everything is going humongous big. Pluto rules big money. Amazon, look at that. Now he's the most, not just influential, but he is the richest man in the world, went out on the news here. And so it's globalizing. We can't stop that. What we can do is to try to figure out, how do we fit into it now? I mean, things are changing. Your jobs are changing. How do we fit into it now? This is a part of the rebirth of the new world, a new society that we're going to come to see. How can you influence it? How can we together, all of us, influence it to the better, right? So as a group, we are purging our souls, purging our minds, purging our Saturnian karma, letting things go. And we have to be good about telling ourselves, well, let go. If we can't change it, let go. If we cling to the old, it's going to be that much more painful, right? We can't climb back into the womb. Hey, we're birthing. Don't climb back in. Try to figure out, what are you excited about? Pluto's all about passion. And yes, that's physical passion, but it's the things we are passionate about. What are you passionate about? This is a time where these things can come to the surface, where we're letting go of the old, right? And this is the blessing of the new that we're going to see down the road, which will come once these aspects are over, is getting attuned to what it is we believe in, what it is we feel we Saturnian master. We're learning to master, hone in new skills right now so that we can get into that new path when Pluto opens up those doors of this birth canal. And sometimes before we can have a new structure, we see crisis first, the collapse of. That's the hard part. We've been seeing that this year. Things are collapsing. Um, but it's only temporary. Actually, the frustration and the anger that comes with it, Pluto can get very angry. It's like, a still volcano that's kind of like been underground here, right? Wanting to kind of erupt and explode. So we're seeing all these energies, pent up energies, people getting angry, going out riding, and poof, off goes these volcanoes, right? So we're having these spiritual, emotional volcanoes when we're not in control of who we are. When we know who we are, we have a different calm. We have roots and grounding. No matter what happens, we know who we are. And I think this is So important, especially at this time. I do want to talk a little bit about where these planets are going to show up in our charts because it's different for all of us. So if you know where this constellation, the stellium of Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto are, well, then you know that this is going to be the area where you're going to be feeling it the most and where the gifts, because there's gifts coming from this, trust me, but we won't see it before later. And then looking back, we won't know that we could have even got there if we didn't go through a crisis first. Sometimes we have to have a huge crisis to reform, to make new, right? To reinvent ourselves. And this is what we are doing. We are reinventing ourselves. So it's actually the universe giving us that kick in the butt. Get off that old pot. Let's get in to be creative and bring the new world forward. So it's not just the virus, that's just happening simultaneously. Um, so I want to talk about the rebirth of you, the rebirth of those in your family if you know their chart. I want you to look at where this is happening because, see, let's just mention Jupiter before we do. Jupiter is the greatest planet. It's huge. It's bountiful. It's abundant, right? It's jovial and it's good. But see, when it comes together with these power players of Saturn and Pluto, well, it kind of expands that too, doesn't it? Expands the lockdown, not just locally, but Jupiter rules internationally, so the whole world went through lockdown, right? And Pluto purging everybody and all the societies and politically as well, and disclosing Pluto will bring everything dark that has been underground up to the surface. We're seeing how that is happening. Without going into those details, or I can talk forever, right? So let's say if you know your chart, and you've probably been listening to all the other astrologers, so you know where it's happening, in which house it's happening in your chart. So take Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter, first house. Those of you, it's the I am, it's the self, right? So for you, it might have been very difficult because the self wants to express itself naturally. And Jupiter is there wanting to kind of come out with this I am. And then Saturn goes, no, you can't do that because you got to work here. You got to work here within yourself. Pluto's trying to transform you, your personality. Now, it is all of us also, but on various scales and levels in the different houses. You have it in the first house. Personality. How are you feeling this year? Where is the restrictions hurting you, the lockdown, personally, right? So you might see yourself, because we always want to look to the opposite sign or the opposite house of the house we're looking at. So for you, I think the challenge pretty much has been between you and your partner or anybody around you on a one-to-one basis. Because as you're purging and transforming, that will signal something off to your partner or who you're working with one-on-one. They will see that you're changing. If they are secure in who they are, then you have support. If you're changing your personality the way you are today, that might trigger fear in him or her, and that might have brought an escalated problems up between you and your partner, power games and so forth. That's tough emotionally. A lot of energy going out there that we don't really need, right? But it's really allowing you and giving you space to stand your grounds, be stronger than you've ever been. Saturn is drawing the line, saying, I'm not putting up with this or that no more, because this is who I am now. You're charting out a new ground for you, okay, which is good. Pluto's going to make you super powerful with that. We just need to get through this tunnel of difficulties. You'll come out so beautifully strong in a way that you've never been before, but we got to get through it. Those of you in the second house, Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter, well, both Jupiter and Pluto rules money. Saturn's in there, right? And it's looking at the structure of the way you've been making money. You might have felt that that has been difficult now in 2020. It might have brought some anxiety, of course, if things have shut down, the business that you work for has shut down, you've been furloughed or whatnot. Yes, that is scary. But listen, we have to always look at the upside, the higher aspects of um, the aspect, but also the outcome of what this is going to give you, the gains in the long run. If you are experiencing right now this kind of collapse, well, then see it as a blessing. Not now necessarily. It's scary financially, you're secured. That's okay. You will survive. But what it's doing is making you have to think differently. Now, if you were a person that was used to just spending and splurging, right now you might see that, ooh, I got to be careful. I got to put aside. How do I really deal with my money? Always think the opposite house. What's the opposite of the second house? It's the eighth house, which has to do with savings and investments and retirement funds. You might have been finding yourself really thinking, having to structure your day to day and your monthly income and to really pay attention to where it is and where it can go and how you can build this. Now, because of your consciousness coming in, holding this so much closer to heart, at this point, you will see down the road, years from now, you'll say, oh, that was in 2020 when I really started paying attention to what finances means to me. And now I'm in this so much better place because of it. I became conscious in 2020 what these things meant. Now, for those of you with it in your third house, that rules communication. It also rules your closer, should I say, community, neighbors, and so forth, but also your siblings. You might have felt now that this might have been very difficult. How to communicate in a time where there's limitations. Um, if you can't do it as before, now you're more limited to the phone or going on Zoom or whatnot. So, yes, I could see that that has been difficult for you. If there has been any unsettled business between you and your siblings with Saturn there, that's more karmic stuff. That might have now come to the surface because of the virus, because of that. There's things maybe that needs to be spoken about, dealt with, and whatnot. I can see how you're growing stronger in your ability and the way you communicate. That's the third house. The way you present yourself out to the world, mastering it, perfecting it. Saturn will help you do that. Pluto will purge it. You're more powerful. You're coming forward with more of your, should I say, truth, things that you held close to heart in the past or hid. Now that's coming to the surface. So you're being more authentic. Jupiter here is giving you opportunities of how you can actually figure out how to expand your way of communication because of this. And of course, that's going to be the gifts that you're going to get down the road. You will see how all this works and how your placement within the structure of family, your siblings, is definitely going to be changing because of this pressure. Those of you in the fourth house, it's family, it's roots, it's your foundation, the things that you have built, that you believe in. You will feel the pressure is on. The focus is on family, maybe your parents, if you still have them, and how you could work with them, what limitations are there, how you want to transform those situations. Pluto will help you express that. If you've been feeling for a long time that, the family has a lot of power, they have a lot of say over me, and but then Saturn comes around and says, I'm going to put on the brakes for that, because if I want a harmonious foundation in my life, I need to speak up. I need to um, deal with it differently. And you have Jupiter coming in that really wants to expand this area of your life. So some of you will find that you'll be moving, maybe even to areas that are, should I say, giving you more square footage. Jupiter likes space. This is your home. You want space, right? So you will be really looking at how you can work on the foundation of your physical home under this period and strengthen it, but also any interactions on family notes. The fifth house, self expression. What is it you've been carrying for so long? And if you haven't had time to really get into that creative side of you because there was other needs, other people, family members, children, whatnot, that always needed you, well, Saturn's saying, enough of that. I'm going to, as much room as I give to everybody else, as much as I care for and nurture everybody else, I'm going to start nurturing self too in the same way. So it's healthy and balanced. And, Pluto's all about passion. We're not just talking the physical passion, but what we're spiritually and mentally and emotionally passionate about. Saturn's wanting to come in and lock in a new foundation for you that you, for the next 29, 30 years, you're going to be really happy about because why? You're on board too. It's not just everybody else that you have been nurturing. This is a time where you're going to get in touch with those deeper needs, the spiritual, emotional sides of you. However, it is, you're going to choose to take it out creatively. That is, individually up to you, right? The fifth house is also children. Um, and of course, for those of you having smaller children, this could have been a time that's been very difficult because of schooling. If the children are not going to school, who's going to watch them if you have to go to work or you have to be at home and negotiate, with your company, whether you can work from home so you can homeschool your children. I mean, this has been the mix. This is what's been difficult. But as you're getting a little bit more hang of it now throughout these months from spring here into September, well, then you're starting to see the benefits already, probably, if you're honest, that there are things that are working a little bit better because you're not out there running on that same wheel, and this is where the blessings are coming in over time, that we're getting off that hamster wheel. We're taking more power back to ourselves, doing those things, setting it up so it works good creatively for you. It's also relationships, not necessarily like marriages, like the seventh house, but the relationships that you have. Maybe if you're in just a long-term relationship or you're dating, you might have seen there too that there's been a lot of challenges, a lot of touch and go, because it's challenged. Saturn and Pluto together are not really friendly, right? If something doesn't work, Pluto will point it out, right? Or Saturn will say, nope, stop it, not doing that no more. You're drawing lines, and you might even have been surprising yourself in the way that you draw lines to those around you today, because now it's more about you, self expression, the inner child, that creative self. It's like, I can't just keep giving all my time to everybody else. What about me? See, and that is the awakening that you are getting. Sixth house crowd, you guys, right? Having it there, ooh, you're really thinking, feeling the virus like 24/7, at least initially. What does it do? What is it going to do? Because you're more oriented towards the physical self and health, right? So you might have been researching a lot, paying attention to it, going through the media every single day, all the updates, all the numbers. It's the house of Virgo, so it always likes to have, what should I say, status, getting the stats for today. How many numbers. Um, there's that. And then probably looking at what kind of diets you could start, to kind of purge the body, because we're still purging, right? But for you, it's purging the body. That's the sixth house. And for you, your frustrations and build up, not only in the lockdown itself, but for you not being able to go to the gym, I think, of all the zodiac, you're the ones having the most difficulties um, with this, and Virgos as well. So it's all like finding new ways how to be healthy, which is in the long term, long run thing, very, very good. Anyway, again, listen to Bruce Lipton, how he talks about mind over matter, talking to the cells, talking to the body in that sense, so that we don't lose our immune system through fear, because the only thing we need to fear is fear itself, right? When we talk to the body, those cells will do exactly what you tell them to do. Your health is up to yourself, your mind, your higher mind, your intellect, your emotional self. You are in control of you. Seventh house. Well, for those of you in marriages, you might have felt that this has been a little difficult, whether it's you going through everything that has to do with the frustrations of how Pluto has been affecting you and how you're reacting to Saturn locking you down or into a format maybe in your marriage that you're not too happy with, you will react because Jupiter is saying, hey, I want a little bit more lenience. I want a little bit more freedom. Jupiter, is happy-go-lucky. It wants wind under its wings. Your partner could have felt very challenged by that you want change. Because what does that mean to the relationship? You're not necessarily saying you want to get out of the relationship. You're just saying, give me a little bit more space. I can't breathe. Saturn and Pluto on top of you here, your partner might have been smothering you with his or her insecurities, and you're like, can't do that. So this is where most of 2020 is going to be working for you, is to find that perfect balance. Remember, always look to the opposite house. What is that from here? Seventh house. It's the first house of individuality. You're not getting enough of your own individuality in your relationship right now because the energy is kind of squeezing you and you don't like to feel like you're being sandwiched in, do you? Right? So speak your truth. This is what it's all about. To share your higher truth, to let him or her know that there is room for all of us. Doesn't have to make us insecure. It just means let's go through these changes together, so that we can end up with higher quality, in the relationship for the future. So, nothing is built overnight, and major change in the whole world, the norms are changing as we are too, can't happen overnight. Therefore, these aspects are lingering for a long time. So it takes time to change habits. It takes time to change what has been in our society for so long. Eighth house for you. It's the intimate house, isn't it? But it's also the house of money, not like the second house. The opposite side is second house, money, income. Eighth house is more savings, securities, investments, retirement funds, mortgages, that kind of thing. You might have this year been looking at how you're needing to save, set aside, and secure, thinking about the future. I think we all have, but for you, even more so. So you might have been looking into investments or whether to take out of your investments, to get into silver or gold, right? Or to sell your shares or to dive into other shares. All this has been on your mind because you're thinking about the future where this can go with our world's changes, right? So that's your area. It's also passion, but your passion is now here into the material physical, not necessarily the emotional physical. So you might have felt, that this lockdown, this repressed energy that Saturn is giving all of us on various levels, for you, a lot of this repression might even be on the physical level. And if that is so, don't let it give you angst. This is passing. It might take time, but you might feel that your passionate love energy might have been a little like this, right? But it doesn't mean it's disappearing. It's temporary. It will be back. Ninth house. Well, we're talking about travel for the third house people and short distance. This is more for those of you thinking internationally, having family abroad. Oh, I can't get to them. I can't fly. 25 hours with a mask on my face, can't breathe. And feeling that, how difficult it is to have family in another country. And what is it going to do? Is this just going to be here for a short period of time? Or is this going to be the part of the new norm? that we can't travel and meet, what is it going to do? But also, the ninth house is higher education. So some of you, maybe because of the pandemic too, which is happening alongside with this, might have you start looking at maybe wanting to take up some classes to re-educate yourself, perhaps. I feel like I got makeup all over the place. So, re-educate yourself. Um, yeah, get back to school. Now, if you have been furloughed, laid off, nothing else is happening, then it is good. This is a great time for you to kind of pick up where maybe you left it off in the past and see what else you can add to the mix. Of course, that's just going to help you in the future naturally, right? The blessing of all of this is that you will be seeing yourself in a different way, in the way that you reach for, the way you research, okay? The strive for higher education and spirituality. Ninth house is also very metaphysical. So a lot of you will dive deeper into those topics at this time. Be sure to kind of meet me back here on topics, metaphysical, spiritual topics that we'll be talking about. So it's not just going to all be astrology, but topics of where we can grow our spirit. 10th house, that is your goals, your ambitions, your work, your career. Yes, this has been a challenge for you this year with Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto. Um, Jupiter wants to expand. There's a part of you that just wants to expand. It's like this constriction is really hard for you. It's holding you in a place where you're thinking it's too tight. You know, yes, you're really good at what you do. You've mastered what you came to do. Saturn is showing Pluto that I've mastered this area of my life. But now this is what I want to do. I want to grow. I want to expand. Where is my promotion? It's time. I should have had that promotion before. Is it coming now? You're asking yourself these questions. And if you're not getting it, then I can see how your mind is kind of turning a new curve towards the new goal that you really want to define yourself by. More power to you, right? This is a blessing in the aftermath is that you know your worth, you know what you've worked for, you know what you've mastered, and you also know that you're ready, ready to expand. Think about Jupiter, biggest planet out there. It's humongous, right? You are ready to expand into a whole new dimension when it comes to your career, and you will see it. That's going to be the gift and the blessing of the pressure that you are going through right now. 11th house, hopes and dreams. I think this, for those of you having your stellium here, is probably the hardest for you. And why is that? Well, because you are an extrovert, have been these last years, and it's like now in the lockdown, you can't really go out and be with your friends. You can't hug them, kiss them, right? And having to have the social distancing, the 6 feet apart. Tough, isn't it? Really tough. So since you're in the 11th house, that's ruled by Uranus, the Aquarian house. You are learning your technical equipment, the internet, the devices that you can use so much better. You're really getting into it and finding new ways of interacting. For those of you in a long distance relationship, think about the 5th house being on the opposite end here, love and relationships. So for you, you might have found yourself sitting on Zoom, talking with those far away, your friends and say your significant other and whatnot, and learning a lot about technology. Technology for you is key at this time. And in fact, in the long run, you'll see how it's actually worked for you to allow you to use it differently down the road. Right now, it's because of a need. Later on, it's going to be more so because you can, right? And through a choice. So that will be exciting for it. Then 12th house people, well, you have always been the people who give unconditionally, right? What Saturn and Pluto is doing for you right now is saying, you know what, that whole unconditional thing that used to work for me in the past, it's not working anymore. Now it has to be a little bit more conditional. That means that you're giving more room to yourself. Saturn's putting the brakes on and saying, nah, no more. Been there, done that. I've tried to save the world. Everybody comes and they lean on me, and I've been giving, and then there's no time for me in this. So Saturn's putting on the brakes. Pluto is giving you the blessing and the gift of allowing yourself to come into that crown that you have nurtured by nurturing yourself too, creatively. That you now are allowed to uh, not feel guilty. And I think that might have been the big thing in the past where you did feel guilty if you kind of made room for yourself and had to put somebody else aside a little bit. But you won't now. You're going to find this perfect, beautiful balance, which is going to bring a lot of joy in the future. Jupiter is just opening up this space. And hey, Jupiter was the ancient ruler of this area. So it too is here to give to you, but we just have to wait to get beyond these aspects. We're going to get into 21. We're going to get beyond all of these retrogrades to start seeing the blessing of what is coming. So, it's not just COVID. This is essential, deeper aspects that touches all of us. We want to purge. We want to purge beautifully too, so that we can do it once and for all. We're not going to have this opportunity for another 29 years. Whatever you make out of your life right now, whatever your new foundation is going to be, is yours to claim. And you are going to be living this over these next 30 years. So do pass this around to your friends. Let them know too which area of their life this is taking effect above and beyond COVID. COVID is just a part of it, also affecting us globally. But it's super important aspects. I wish you the very, very best. Stay healthy, stay safe, pay attention, coming back with some astrology for you. All of you signs here next month. Take care now. Bye.